I started timing my showers like I was studying for an exam. 30 minutes after waking up, in, scrubbed with fragrance-free body wash, shampoo twice, rinse, towel dry, new t-shirt directly from the dryer. After work, back in. On gym days, I'd add a third rinse because sweat felt like evidence. I swapped out the deodorant I've used since high school for the clinical strength, stuff that lives behind plexiglass at Target. I started using the kind of laundry detergent that promises to eliminate odors at the molecular level. And when an ad told me enzyme boosters ate bacteria that caused smell, I bought two. I booked a dentist cleaning because what if it was my breath? The hygienist ran the little mirror along my gums and said gently, "You're fine." I made an appointment with a dermatologist for the same reason, fine. I even saw my primary care doctor and asked him to test me for a disorder I found in a late-night panic, trimethylaminuria, which sounded like a villain and felt like my only explanation. He told me, kindly, that I didn't have it. He told me I didn't smell. Jenna disagreed. "God, you stink," she said the first time, offhand, in that sing-song way people use when they're teasing but want the words to stick. We were in our apartment in Chicago, early fall, windows cracked just enough to let the train noise from the Brown line bleed in. I had just come home from work. I put the mail on the counter and leaned in to kiss her cheek. She flinched like I'd pressed a cold spoon to her neck. "Are you being serious?" I laughed, because the alternative was to feel the floor shift. She made a face. "I don't know, babe. I'm just sensitive. Maybe it's the gym. It's like wet wool." "Wet wool," I repeated, because my brain grabs onto phrases like a dog with a sock. That night, she turned her back to me in bed. When I rolled closer, she tucked the comforter between us like a barrier and said she was hot. I lay there in the dark and sniffed my shoulder like a raccoon. Linen. A little detergent. Nothing that felt like a moral failing. From there, it became a rhythm. A couple of days would pass, I'd exhale, and then, "Ugh, did you forget deodorant?" in the kitchen. "I think those socks are, in the hallway. Can you, no offense, wash up before you get in bed?" whispered behind her book's spine. The words were small enough to plausibly be casual, frequent enough to feel like a drumbeat. I responded with rituals. I started keeping a stick of deodorant at the office, one in my locker at Export Fitness, one in my glove compartment even though I barely drive. I downloaded a habit tracker app and set reminders for brushing after lunch and flossing at night and changing towels every other day because an article said bacteria breed in damp terry cloth. I switched to antiperspirant with aluminum despite being the kind of person who Googles aluminum myth at 2 a.m. I bought cologne, the expensive kind, Jenna's friend once joked. Makes guys smell like successful furniture, sprayed the air, walked through it like a cartoon. I threw away every t-shirt with underarm discoloration even though I knew that was about dye, not hygiene. I made a spreadsheet. I'm not proud of that, but there it is. Column A, date. Column B, what I did. Shower gym brand of deodorant. Column C, what Jenna said. Column D, my mood after. I drew a little line chart of accusations per week. I asked people, quietly, in ways that pretended to be jokes. "Hey, ma'am," I told Marcus at work when we were waiting for our coffees at the little shop in the lobby. "Level with me? Do I smell like I should be exiled?" He sniffed the air with dramatic flair, then laughed and said I smelled like espresso and nothing else. "You're good," he said, a little softer because my eyes were apparently telling the truth. My mouth couldn't. I shoved my hands in my pockets so I didn't do that thing where I start rubbing my shirt like I can buff my shirt like I can buff myself. I asked my sister Zoe when she hugged me on a Sunday in Lincoln Park. "Smell me," I said into her hair, which made her snort. "No, like, actually smell me. Do I smell weird?" She leaned back and looked at me like I'd told her I was moving to the woods. "You smell like laundry and, what is that, cedar? You smell like a Pinterest board." I believed her for 5 minutes. A week later, we were on the couch watching a true crime show she likes, the kind where the reenactments look like soap operas. I reached over to rub Jenna's calf. She pulled away, nose wrinkling. "Babe," that one word, drawn out, weary, your feet. I stared at them like I could will them to become acceptable. I'd showered 90 minutes earlier. I'd worn socks for maybe 2 hours. "They're clean," I said. "Okay, but can you go rinse, please? It's right there." She gestured at her nose and gagged theatrically. That night, I slept in the spare room because I told myself she should have a good night of rest. I woke up at 31:03 a.m., heart pounding like I'd sprinted. I went into the bathroom and put my face close to my armpit and inhaled until my lungs hurt. Linen. A whisper of the cologne that cost as much as a car payment. I scrubbed anyway, the kind of scrubbing that makes skin shiny. I Googled, "Can nose hallucinate smell?" I found a forum where someone described smelling smoke for months and learned the word phantasmia. I wondered if you could have that about a person. When I tried to talk to Jenna, she tilted her head the way she does when she thinks she's being patient. "I'm not trying to make you feel bad," she said. "I'm just being honest. It's better than lying and pretending everything is fine, right?" She reached across the table and patted my hand like I was a nervous dog. "We all have things. Yours is just, you know." She waved her fingers airily toward me. "What things?" I asked, because specificity felt like safety. "Is it sweat? Is it breath? Is it clothes? Is it a specific time of day? Because I can control time of day if I know which time is wrong." She sighed. "I don't want to make a list. It'll make you spiral." I was already spiraling. I was spiraling so hard my spirals had spirals. One Thursday in November, she called from work to say she'd be late last-minute meeting, client emergency, and I used the time to wash every piece of fabric we owned. Couch throws, pillow covers, the blanket we take to movies in the park, even the weird decorative cushion you're not supposed to lean on because it flattens. I propped the windows open despite the wind. I wiped down baseboards because I read dust can smell musty when disturbed. When she came home, cheeks pink from the cold, she set her toad on the entry table and sniffed once. "Thank you," she said, surprised. "It actually smells really good in here." Something inside me unclenched for a second. I went to hug her. She leaned back and laughed and tapped my chest with 2 fingers. "Don't press the advantage," she said, joking. "Not joking." I took a shower. My doctor asked about stress, so I told him. He said it sounded like I was doing more than enough. He asked me gently if everything else in the relationship felt okay. I said yes too quickly. He didn't challenge me. He recommended a therapist who works with anxiety. The therapist had a soft voice and a plant that looked like a little jungle in a gray pot. She asked me to describe the first time Jenna said something about smell, and I did. And then she asked me to describe the most recent time. I did that too. "How did you feel in your body in those moments?" she asked. I said small, like I'd been shrunk in the dryer. I described the spreadsheet, and she didn't laugh. She asked me to show her the chart, and when I did, she said, "Notice anything about the days?" I said, "Wednesdays." She said, "What happens on Wednesdays?" I said, "Nothing." And then her yoga class is on Wednesdays, the one she goes to after work with coworkers. I swallowed. She usually comes home later on Wednesdays. She didn't say, "Aha." She didn't say anything for a few beats. "How do you two handle conflict?" she asked instead. "Badly," I said. "We don't. We try not to fight. Jenna hates fighting. She says it makes her feel unsafe. She says we should be able to work things out calmly. But then, when we try, she says I'm too emotional or that I'm making things up." "Gaslighting," the therapist said, not unkindly, like a teacher labeling a diagram. She didn't look triumphant. She looked sad. I dismissed that. Gaslighting felt like a word people use online to turn ordinary hurts into crimes. But then I remembered how Jenna had said her mother also noticed my smell. She didn't want to say anything because she's polite, but she told me after dinner that maybe you should see someone? And how, at Thanksgiving, when I found myself alone with Jenna's mother in the kitchen, I'd said, "Hey, please always feel free to tell me if I'm doing something wrong." And she blinked, confused, then said, "Oh, honey, you're a dream." "I wish my husband smelled like you," he insists on acts, and we laughed while my stomach fell through the floor. The first time I caught Jenna in a lie about the smell, it was stupid. She came home, nose wrinkled. "Did you forget to clean the litter box? That's the smell. We don't have a cat." I waited for her to correct herself. She didn't. She put down her bag, kicked off her boots, and opened the fridge. "You should get rid of leftovers too," she tossed over her shoulder. "They put out odor chemicals." She likes scientific words when she's confident. I stood there with my keys in my hand and thought, "You're saying anything. You just need there to be a smell." It became like that with intimacy too. She would kiss me on the forehead and say, "Rain check? I'm just not in the mood, and your thing is kind of making it worse." I started using the spare bedroom more nights than not, telling myself this was compassionate, that this was how good husbands behave, make space for someone's sensitivities, except I'm not her husband. We've been together for 5 years. We moved to Chicago 3 years ago and built a life that looks like a modern apartment and a shared Google Calendar and brunch with friends who ask every spring, "So when's it happening?" I didn't want to bring up marriage in the middle of a conversation about body chemistry. I wanted to fix the problem first. I kept trying to find the lever that would switch us back to the old setting where she slid her feet under my legs on the couch and said, "You're so warm," like it was a prayer. The first crack that felt like a fault line happened in December. Jenna left her Apple Watch charging on the nightstand. She never takes it off, but she'd rushed out to meet Aaron and Becca, girls' night, and I was in the bedroom swapping the duvet cover when her watch lit up and tapped the wood once. I'm not proud of what I did next. I'm also not sorry. If you've ever lived with a question that eats you, you know there are acts you justify because not knowing is its own sin. I glanced. The message preview was from AM, and it said, "Slide through the side door." Front desk guy's on a smoke. My chest did that thing where it folds in on itself. I told myself AM could be anything. Andrew from her office, the one who organizes volunteer days. Anna with the short hair, a delivery app typo. Then another bubble. "You still wearing that blue sweater?" I'm thinking about it. I did not know where Jenna was. I knew she wasn't at the wine bar on Armitage she calls our spot because that place doesn't have a front desk. I knew I was going to see something I couldn't unsee. Jenna and I share locations because we both get anxious when people don't answer for hours. When I opened, find my own face stared back from the little icon and the map did that gentle swoop to show me her dot at an address in River North I didn't recognize. I copied it into Google and a boutique hotel popped up with a picture of a velvet couch and a bar with those gold shelves you see on Instagram. I told myself a dozen alternate explanations while I put on shoes. Corporate holiday party at a hotel happens all the time. A friend having a crisis in a room happens too. The front desk message could be about not wanting to get charged for extra guests. I told myself I was going to go to the lobby and sit and do nothing except see her walk out and know where she had been. I told myself I would not make a scene because I am not a scene person. I took the train because the cold air felt like punishment, and I thought maybe if I suffered enough on the platform, the universe would decide I had paid. The hotel smelled like wood polish and lemons. I sat in a chair with a view of the elevators and pretended to look at my phone like every other person in every lobby at 9,003 p.m. in Chicago in December. I stared at the elevator numbers and my mouth got dry in a way that reminded me of science class, fight or flight. The doors opened, then a couple stepped out laughing, then a guy in a parka alone, then Jenna, head down, hair tucked into her scarf, blue sweater under a long camel coat. She didn't see me. She walked across the lobby with purpose, the way she does when she's late to a meeting. She pushed through the revolving door and I stood up because my body did, not because my brain told it to. Outside, the cold slapped us both. She turned toward the corner like she knew where she was going and I said, "Jenna." She froze like I'd said gun. She turned. Her face went through 3 expressions so fast I almost missed the first, surprise, then calculation, then neutral impatience. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I was in the area," I lied, because I had not decided if we were telling the truth yet. Your watch pinged. "You were looking at my watch," she said, voice up, the way she goes when she wants to make me the problem. She shook her head and laughed once without humor. "That's a violation of privacy." "Who is AM?" I asked calmly, or what I hoped read as calmly. My hands were shaking. I put them in my pockets like I was cold. I was cold. She rolled her eyes. "Andrew," she said, "from work. We were having a drink. He's going through divorce stuff. It's messy." She stepped closer, put a hand on my arm like she was soothing an animal. The hand was cool. "I didn't tell you because I knew you'd do this." "He told you to use the side door," I said. "He didn't want to make the front desk deal with adding someone to the room for 20 minutes, she said. "Quick. He's on a corporate card and they're weird. Jesus, do you hear yourself? Can you not ruin a night for once?" I opened my mouth and closed it again. I said, "Okay, because I am a coward in parking lots. Okay." Her hand loosened on my coat. She stood on tiptoe and kissed my chin. "Go home," she said, softer. "I'll see you in a bit." She turned and walked toward the corner again. I watched her. She didn't look back. A man stepped out of the shadows by the side entrance, 6 doors down, and touched her elbow. He wore a navy peacoat and a beanie. He looked like a person who ran half marathons for charity. They went inside. I stood there long enough for my toes to go numb, and then I went home and scrubbed the kitchen sink, as if that were a useful response. At 1012 a.m., she slid into bed next to me and kissed the back of my neck. "Sorry for snapping," she whispered. "You know how I get when I feel cornered." She pressed her face to my shoulder and inhaled. "You showered," she said, surprised. "Thank you." That was the night I stopped believing her about the smell and started believing her about everything else. If you have never suspected your partner is cheating, I hope you never do. It makes you a detective in ways that degrade you. You read receipts like poems. Every canceled plan becomes motive. Every joke becomes foreshadowing. You go through the 5 stages of grief and then through them again at 3 a.m. while staring at the ceiling and counting the fan blades because you are afraid if you sleep your brain will play you a movie you can't unwatch. I didn't confront her that week. I told myself it was because I needed more than a man in a peacoat at a hotel. I told myself it was because I wanted to respect her privacy even as she did not respect my dignity. The truth is, I was scared. I could see the shape of the life we'd built and how easy it would be to break it, easier than unscrewing one of those little IKEA bolts and trying to put the shelf back together later when you'd lost a piece. I started patterns again, except this time the spreadsheet was about her. I noticed that the smell comments almost always happened on days when she came home late from yoga or drinks with the team or helping Aaron move. I noticed that she called me Bud on those nights, a word she never used otherwise, a word that felt like she was moving me to a different shelf in her mind labeled brother. I noticed she never accused me of smelling in the mornings when we woke up in the same bed. It was always at night when intimacy was on the table. I noticed that when I said, "Let's take a shower together," she made the same face she makes when a waiter offers anchovies. I learned her iPhone passcode by accident. She entered it in the reflection of the window once, and then I carried that number around like a live wire for a week, telling myself I wouldn't use it because I wanted to be better than a cliché. Then one Saturday, she put her phone on the kitchen island to go switch the laundry, and a banner arrived from AM. That said, "Your husband's still blaming his BO?" I didn't think. I picked up the phone and pressed in the 4 numbers before I could talk myself out of it. The thread was long. The first thing that hit me was how casual it was. Not grand sweeping romance, not declarations, logistics, side door, bench by the river at 6, blue sweater, memes, the kind of messages 2 people send when they've been comfortable for long enough to not need to perform. I scrolled, stomach dropping and rising like an elevator, a photo of the ceiling of a hotel room, a video of a city view at night. Then this, 3 weeks earlier, AM, he's still doing the stink thing? Jenna, constantly lol. It's useful. If he starts poking around, I just say, "Babe, can you shower?" And he backs off. 8 a.m., "You're evil." Jenna, you like it. 8 a.m., "Yes." I didn't realize I was making a noise until I heard it, a thin animal sound. I put the phone down flat, screen down like closing a book could undo the plot. My hands were shaking hard enough that I had to brace them on the counter. I felt simultaneously too hot and too cold. I thought, wildly, that I should turn off the oven even though nothing was in it. Jenna came back into the kitchen humming, ponytail swinging. She saw my face and stopped humming. Her eyes flicked to the phone on the counter face down, then back to mine. All the air in the room felt click-charged. "What?" she said, cautious. I opened my mouth. My therapist's voice floated up through the static. "Plan your words when you're not flooded." I had planned words in a notebook, sitting on her couch, words like hard boundary and non-negotiable, words that sound like they belong to people who can say them without their voices breaking. Those words did not arrive. Instead, I said, "I need to go for a walk." I picked up my keys. I left my phone on the table because I didn't trust myself not to text screenshots to anyone who would validate me. I walked out into the brittle, bright winter sun and made it 2 blocks before I put my hands on my knees and breathed like I'd sprinted. I walked to the lake. I stood on the concrete and watched the water do its January thing, flat and metallic under a sky that looked like a hung sheet. I thought about how many times I had stood here with Jenna, about the day we moved to this city and ate greasy pizza on the floor surrounded by boxes, and she said, "We make good choices," into my shoulder. I thought about the night at the hotel, the peacoat, the side door. I thought about the spreadsheet I'd made about my own body and wanted to hurl it into the lake like a bad offering. I thought about the text, "It's useful." I thought about the word evil and how easily AM had typed yes. When I came home, Jenna was sitting at the kitchen table with her hands around a mug like a person in a stock photo about difficult conversations. "Are you ready to talk?" she asked, soft. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded weird, like I'd borrowed it. She nodded. "Okay," she said. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry for making you feel bad about something you can't control. That was wrong of me." She looked appropriately contrite. I've been under a lot of stress and I projected. I'm sorry." "Who is AM?" I asked. She blinked. She put the mug down. She folded her hands like she was praying. "Andrew," she said. "From work," I said. "Yes," she said. So I nodded. "And the hotel," I said. "Work thing," she said. "And the side door," I said. She stared at me for a long time, then deflated, shoulders dropping like someone had taken out the pins. "Okay," she said. "Okay." She picked at a thread on the cuff of her sweater like she was giving herself courage. "I should have broken up with you before anything happened. I didn't. I'm sorry." "How long?" I asked. My voice was steady, which surprised me. "Since August," she said, turning it into a question like maybe I would negotiate. It wasn't supposed to be anything. I don't want to make excuses. I was lonely. I felt like you were always hovering. I felt smothered, honestly. And then he made me feel... "Don't," I said, and the word came out sharper than I intended. "Don't tell me how he made you feel." I took a breath. "Did you use the smell thing on purpose?" She hesitated, then gave a half laugh, small and ugly. "Sometimes," she said, "it worked." I nodded because if I didn't, I might throw the mug at the wall just to hear something shatter. "We can fix this," she said quickly, leaning forward, hands splayed. "The way she sells clients on plans at work. We can. I can do therapy. We can do therapy. We can take a break. I can end things cleanly. We can set rules. I'll never say anything about that again." "My body," I said. She flushed. "Your body," she repeated, like she'd stepped on a rake. I looked at the countertop. There was a tiny nick near the edge where I'd cut a lemon too hard 2 summers ago. It looked like a little mouth. "I'm not sure I want to fix it," I said, and my voice broke on want. "I'm not sure I want to build a life in which you get to decide I'm clean enough for intimacy like you're the FDA. She laughed in disbelief. "Oh my God, you're making this into a metaphor." "It is a metaphor," I said. "It's a metaphor with a chart." She rolled her eyes. "Always with the charts." There it was again, the disdain that seemed small until it wasn't. "I'm going to stay at Zoe's for a few days," I said. "I need to think. I gestured at nothing in particular. Space." She nodded tight. "Fine," she said. "Run to Big Sister. Have fun reporting back to the family about how awful I am." "I wasn't planning on making a report," I said, "but I will tell my therapist." "Of course you will," she said, venom turning the words sweet. "You love having an audience." I packed a bag. I took my toothbrush and the good razor and 2 t-shirts that still felt like mine. I took my cologne because I couldn't bear the idea of her smelling it and thinking of me. When I zipped the duffel, she came to the doorway and leaned her shoulder against it and said, weary, "Do you seriously think you don't smell sometimes? Everyone does. It's human." "I'm human," I said. "That's the point." On the walk to Zoe's, my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't know. "We should talk, man to man." I stopped under a streetlight and read it twice. Then a second ping. "It's Andrew. Before you block me, hear me out." My fingers went cold. I looked back at our building like I could see through it. I typed, "No." I watched the dots appear and disappear, then disappear for good. At Zoe's, I told the bare bones because she has a toddler and a bedtime, and because I didn't trust myself not to turn the story into a performance. She made me tea and let me talk until I'd run out of adjectives. When I got to the smell, she swore in a way I haven't heard since she was 19 and fearless. "That's cruel," she said. "That's..." She didn't finish the sentence. She put her hand over mine. "I'm so sorry." I slept on her couch and dreamed about showering in a room with no walls, other people walking through with grocery bags while I scrubbed and never felt clean. The next morning, Jenna texted a paragraph about how we should set ground rules for the separation. It was brisk and efficient and had bullet points. I stared at the last bullet for a long time. "No dating other people while we decide what to do." My thumb hovered. I typed, "You've already decided." I deleted it. I typed, "I agree to 2 weeks of no dating because I am an idiot who still believes in rules." I went for a run because I needed to be inside my body without negotiating with it. It was 10 degrees. My lungs burned. I ran until my legs trembled, and then I ran more because pain felt like control. When I got back, I showered, of course I did, and stood in Zoe's clean little bathroom with the pink bath mat and thought about how many showers I'd taken in the last 3 months because my partner told me I was unfit for touch. I got mad. Not useful mad. Fire hydrant mad. Fire hydrant mad. The therapist called to confirm my appointment for the next day. "Do you want to bring your partner?" she asked, because we'd talked about inviting Jenna to a session once if it felt productive. "No," I said, and heard the finality in it like a door thudding shut. It would not be productive. In the afternoon, I went back to the apartment to grab a couple more things while I knew Jenna would be at work. Her blue sweater was on the back of a chair. I picked it up and smelled it without meaning to. It smelled like her. It smelled like fabric softener and a note of vanilla from her lotion, and underneath, faint, something I didn't recognize. A new cologne, maybe. I put it down like it had burned me. On the kitchen island, my spreadsheet printout lay under an unopened package from a company that sells odor-absorbing bags for sneakers. I stared at the grid of dates and little notes and wanted to laugh at myself for thinking data could save me. Then I noticed something I hadn't before. The days she said it the most aligned, almost perfectly, with the nights she came home late. I knew that already in my gut. Seeing it in ink turned my gut into certainty. My phone buzzed. A text from Jenna. "We should talk tonight. 7?" A second later, "Please." I stared at the blue bubble and thought about the man in the peacoat, and about the text he'd sent me, and about the hotel with the gold shelves, and about the way she'd said useful, and about how small a person has to make you before you stop trying to be big. "Okay," I typed, 7. At 6058, I sat at our kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen because props make me brave. I had 3 things on the page. 1. Smell a control. 2. You chose this. 3. I am not a problem to be managed. My hand shook anyway. Jenna walked in at 7006, hair damp from outside, cheeks pink. She closed the door gently, like sound could trigger something. She sat across from me and folded her hands like an interview. "Thank you for coming," she said, like I'd been invited to a meeting I couldn't skip. "I live here," I said. "For now." She swallowed. "Right," she said. "I want to be honest." She took a breath. I ended it. Her eyes flicked to mine. "With Andrew." "Okay," I said, because my brain stopped on the word ended like a record scratching and couldn't move forward. "When?" "Today," she said. "Because I found out," I said. She flinched. "Because it was wrong," she said. We looked at each other like people on opposite cars in the same train. "I'm going to ask you a question," I said, slow, because my therapist says consent matters in conversations too, and I need you to answer it without decorating it. She nodded, wary. "Okay." "Did you ever think I actually smelled?" I said. "Or did you need me to smell so you could feel okay that you were doing what you were doing?" She closed her eyes. She opened them. "Sometimes you smelled like a person," she said, "the way someone admits to liking a song they know is uncool. And sometimes I needed you to smell like something wrong so I could not touch you without feeling like a monster." I breathed in through my nose and out through my mouth like the app tells you. "Thank you," I said, "because gratitude is one of the only ways I know how to be human. That's the last time you get to do that to me." She nodded. "I know." Silence settled like dust. I could hear the radiator ticking. I could hear a neighbor's laugh through the wall, bright and oblivious. I could hear my own heart. "I'm going to ask you something," she said, "and I need you to answer it without making a speech." "Okay," I said. "Do you want this to be salvageable?" she asked. "Us." I looked at the legal pad and the 3 bullet points that were really prayers. I looked at her face, the face I have loved in 1,000 versions. Makeup on and brushed and ready, makeup off and soft with sleep, laughing, crying, flushed from running for the train, lit by a birthday candle. I thought about weddings, about kitchens we haven't cooked in, about kids we haven't named. I thought about the word useful. I opened my mouth. The front buzzer sounded. It was loud in the small apartment, harsh. We both jumped. We stared at the intercom like it had coughed. Jenna's face drained. She looked at me, then at the door, then back at me. "Don't," she whispered. I stood up anyway. I walked to the intercom. I pressed the button and said, "Hello?" in a voice that didn't sound like mine. "Food delivery," a male voice said. "For Jenna." "We didn't order anything," I said. A pause. "From AM," the voice said, apologetic, like he'd been given instructions. He said to say, "For the apology." I turned. Jenna had both hands over her mouth. She looked like she might collapse in on herself. I watched her for a beat that felt like a minute, then pressed the button and said, "Wrong apartment." I let go and the speaker hissed and went silent. When I looked back at her, she was crying. "I told him to stop," she said. "I told him." "Of course you did," I said, and my voice surprised me again, not because it was loud, but because it was done. I picked up the legal pad. I tore off the top sheet. I folded it in half and in half again and in half again until it was a small square. I put it in my pocket. "We're done for today," I said. "I'll email you the logistics." I walked to the door. "Wait," she said, voice cracking. "Please, don't go like this. We didn't just... Please, let's..." I stopped with my hand on the knob. I didn't turn around because I was afraid if I saw her face I would say "we" and mean it. "Do you understand what you did to me?" I asked the wood. "Do you understand that every time you told me I smelled, you put a hand on the dimmer of my life and turned it down? Do you understand that I started believing I didn't deserve to be touched?" Silence. Then, small, "Yes." "Okay," I said. "Then we can stop here." I opened the door and stepped into the hallway, where the carpet always smells faintly like someone else's dinner. I pulled the door closed behind me, gently, like sound could still trigger something. I took the folded square of paper from my pocket and unfolded it. 3 bullet points looked back at me, my own messy handwriting under yellow kitchen light. I added a fourth. 4. Don't let someone decide your body is a reason not to love you. I folded it again. I put it back in my pocket. I started down the stairs. I moved into Zoe's guest room full-time by the end of that week. The air in her place smelled like Play-Doh and baby wipes, and somehow that was a relief. Proof that scent could be innocent. Every night I lay on the fold-out couch, scrolling through emails from landlords and reading texts from Jenna that swung like a pendulum. One day apologies, the next accusations. She begged for another chance on Tuesday. You don't throw away 5 years for one mistake, please. Therapy rules anything. Then Thursday, stop playing the victim. You were suffocating me. Andrew was an escape. Saturday, I'm scared. I don't want to lose you. Come home. I didn't answer most of them. The few I did were logistics, bills, mail, shared streaming accounts. Each message I sent without warmth felt like peeling off another layer of old skin. One night, around midnight, my phone lit up with an unknown number. A picture, Jenna at a bar, hair down, leaning close to Andrew. The caption, "She still tells you you stink?" My chest clenched. I blocked the number, but I knew it was him. He wanted me to know she was still his. The next morning, I printed every text, every photo, every piece of data from the spreadsheet. I made a binder. It felt ridiculous, but it was the only way I could stop doubting myself. If Jenna tried to twist the narrative, she always did, I would have physical proof of the truth. The breaking point came at Zoe's kitchen table. Jenna had shown up unannounced, makeup perfect, scarf knotted like she was heading into a magazine shoot instead of begging her partner not to leave. She set her bag down and slid into the chair opposite me. "You look tired," she said, voice dripping concern. "I am," I admitted. "You don't have to do this," she said, "living like some refugee in your sister's spare room. I want you back. I want us back." I stared at her. Us? Or the cover you had while sneaking out hotel side doors? Her eyes narrowed. "God, you're dramatic. You think you're the first man to be cheated on? People move on. They work through it." "Did your mother tell you that?" I asked. She blinked. "Because last Thanksgiving you said she thought I smelled too. I asked her myself. She said I smelled great. So either she lied to me or you lied to both of us. Which is it?" For the first time, Jenna had no script. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Finally, fine. I exaggerated. "Exaggerated?" I repeated. "You weaponized it. Every time you wanted distance, you pulled the stink card. You trained me like a dog with a spray bottle." Her face flushed. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I cut in. "You wanted me small, and it worked. Look at me. I was charting my showers like stock prices. Do you know how pathetic that is?" She looked down at her manicured nails. "I was scared," she murmured. "Of what?" "Of losing control." "Dear!" That was the most honest thing she'd said in months. Word spread. Not because I told it, but because Andrew wasn't discreet. A coworker of Jenna's reached out to me on Facebook Messenger. "Hey, I'm sorry, but I thought you should know your fiance's been bringing her cousin to office parties. People talk." The humiliation was complete. Friends who once asked about our wedding plans now asked if I was okay in the hushed tones reserved for grief. My parents, practical Midwesterners, offered to help me break the lease, no questions asked. Zoe wanted me to scorch the earth, post the screenshots, tag them both. Instead, I decided on one public moment. It was Jenna's company holiday party in December. I knew she'd be there with him. I also knew half her colleagues were tired of the charade. I put on my best suit, walked into that hotel ballroom like I belonged, and waited until they were on the dance floor together. Then I walked up, calm as a surgeon, and said loud enough for the music to dip, "So this is the man who thinks I stink." The room went still. Jenna froze, hand halfway to Andrew's shoulder. Andrew tried to smirk, but it twitched. I pulled the binder from under my arm and let the pages fan across a table. Texts, screenshots, timestamps. People craned to see. Gasps, whispers. Someone actually clapped. Jenna's boss, a woman with steel gray hair, stepped forward. "Is this true?" she asked. Jenna stammered. Andrew swore under his breath. And in that moment, I realized I didn't even need their answer. The silence said enough. I left without waiting for the fallout. The cold night air felt like baptism. The next weeks were chaos. Jenna begged, threatened, bargained. She claimed Andrew wasn't serious, that she loved me, that I was overreacting. When that failed, she accused me of ruining her career. Andrew, meanwhile, vanished from her life as quickly as he'd entered, apparently. Dating a woman who could lose her job wasn't worth the trouble. By February, I'd signed my own lease. Small apartment, second floor walk-up, smells faintly of curry from the neighbors. I sleep better there than I have in years. Jenna sent one final email. You'll never find someone who loves you like I did. I laughed out loud, because she was right, thank God. Now, months later, I still catch myself sniffing my shirt before leaving the house. Old habits die slow. But I also know this, I'm not the stink. I never was. The rot was hers, lies, manipulation, betrayal. And every time I spray cologne, I remind myself it's not to mask something shameful, it's to celebrate that I walked away. What would you do if your partner used smell or some other excuse as a weapon to cover their betrayal? Would you confront quietly or expose them publicly? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash the like button, and subscribe for more stories like this.